Drew, let's get to that. This is something you wanted to talk about. Our guy, Sam Kahn at The Athletic, did a very in-depth piece on everything that went in to Texas's official visit when they hosted Arch Manning, 8 other official visitors on that trip as well. And remember, with the NCAA, you can now have up to 4 family members paid for room and board during that 48-hour visit. So keep that in mind. But that tab runs up to $280,000. That's not just Arch Manning. That's 8 other families as well. But Drew, your initial thoughts on this, is this made up to be too big of a deal, or is this just what's expected of the price you have to pay to win at this level now?
Well, I think it's worth every penny. I mean, they're paying what, $250,000, and how much Arch Manning could potentially make the University of Texas over the next not only 4, 5, 6 years, but let's talk decades. And assuming he plays to the level we think he can play football at as a quarterback. No, this is worth it. Cooper, I wanted to ask you, man, you've been on the other side. You've organized some of these recruiting weekends. Like, this is just kind of par for the course. I think it is a little funny when you start getting into the breakdown when it goes meal by meal. I mean, a mimosa bar for breakfast for the parents is probably a little over the top, but I mean, you've orchestrated this. Your initial thoughts? I mean, you would say the same thing. This is doing business these days.
I made some calls to a couple of director of recruitings, former director of on-campus recruitings as well, and this is not something that would be considered atypical. I think, when we were at the University of Washington, especially in Seattle, I mean, comparable to Austin in the University of Texas, those are just part of, I guess, the realities of being in a city like Seattle or Austin. You're going to pay top dollar to put these recruits in their families in top of the line hotels. And really, when you kind of look at the itemized receipt from that weekend, you look at Texas, a lot of that bill was shelled out at the Four Seasons, a 5-star hotel right there in the heart of downtown Austin. So you take that into consideration. You talked about it. You're hitting on the mimosas, but a lot of this is kind of funded for the parents in that experience as well. You also have to take into consideration Texas's staff, the spouses of staff members as well, support staff members as well. It's a lot more than just 34 people that they have to take into consideration. So as of now, 4 of the 9 visitors on that visit of that June weekend committed to the Texas Longhorns. But I agree with you, Drew. This is the price of doing business. I remember when Kirby Smart got to the University of Georgia, there were a lot of questions on how much money Georgia was spending. I don't hear those questions now. Nobody questions the amount of money that Nick Saban spends on recruiting. You can make the argument that it's silly to the point that where we've gotten in college football, some of the things, the accessories that are available on these weekend trips, that's fine. I think there's a conversation there. But as of right now, this is the price of doing business. And you see Alabama, if they're the barometer, they're the standard in college football. Texas just lost a game to them by 1 point, and a game they should have won. And right now, ranked number 1 in the recruiting rankings in 2023, Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson's tied. Number 2, Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns. This is exactly what you need to do to win in this day of age. So I have no issue with this whatsoever. And it's a lot more than Arch Manning, the $280,000 bill that you see there, a lot more going into that. But I have no issue with Texas doing that. But Drew, let's kind of get to the elephant.
Cooper,
go ahead.
You mentioned Georgia. I actually looked it up before we started the show. Back in 2019, that the recruiting budget for travel, so we're talking travel, not even going out and hosting kids, which we know is expensive, $2.83 million. $2.8 million. That's what they paid in private jets, flying the coaches around. Do you think Georgia thinks that's worth it right now? 2 years later, you win a national title, a college football playoff. So I wouldn't be worried about the cost at all.
Takes what it takes, man. And that's especially in the SEC. Texas getting ready for the SEC